At around 11:15 Eastern this morning, the president delivered what were unexpected remarks in the White House Rose Garden, reacting to the news that he'd been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 4 hours later, the newly minted Peace Prize laureate convened a highly anticipated meeting of his War Council, a meeting in the White House Situation Room regarding the way forward in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Mr. Obama is currently engaged in a full strategic review of that war, and while a final decision is yet to be made, the Wall Street Journal reported today that one option given to the president by his top commander in Afghanistan is a surge of more than 60,000 U.S. troops. That would be a lot more than the 40,000 troop increase that has previously been reported as the most intensive option. In terms of what's actually happening on the ground in Afghanistan, here at MSNBC and NBC News, we have benefited tremendously from the extraordinary reporting of Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel. Richard has just returned from his latest trip to Afghanistan. He has a new documentary that is premiering on MSNBC on Sunday night that's called Tip of the Spear. It's an hour-long, jaw-dropping piece of his Emmy Award-winning reporting from the front lines in Afghanistan. Richard, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
It is absolutely my pleasure. I always enjoy it.
Congratulations on the Emmy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In terms of McChrystal proposing 60,000 U.S. troops, we previously thought the top proposal was 40,000.
Yes.
We've already doubled the number of troops in Afghanistan this year. If we doubled it again with 60,000 more troops, would that make more strategic options available to the United States?
It would allow McChrystal to change what he believes is the strategy on the ground in Afghanistan. Okay. Right now, U.S. troops are stretched pretty thin because they have to work with NATO partners, and a lot of the NATO partners, particularly the Germans and the Italians, aren't doing the same kind of mission that U.S. troops are doing, U.S. soldiers and Marines. So having more American forces, reliable forces on the ground, would allow him, as he said in his leaked report, to push off of bases, to engage more with the people, and to try and win hearts and minds and do a longer-term nation-building strategy, which, according to that report, he thinks will be a successful strategy in the long term for Afghanistan.
Now, you have, in terms of your reporting, what you've seen with U.S. troops, what you've seen among the Afghan people on your recent trips, you have expressed skepticism that the American people are ever going to want Americans to be there, no matter what Americans are doing in their country.
8 years have passed, and I think you have to also compare this strategy, which was really, it's an old strategy, but it was refined in the war in Iraq by General Petraeus. And it was a strategy of winning hearts and minds by protecting the people.
Right.
And General McChrystal often talks about protecting the people. That should be the focus. Continue to kill bad guys, as the military likes to say, but try and convince the people that they should be fighting the enemies themselves, right? And that happened in Iraq quite successfully. The big difference between Iraq and Afghanistan is that in Iraq there was a civil war, and one side, the Sunni Arabs, found themselves on the losing side of the war and needed protection. They needed American help, and they were very, therefore, receptive.
They even sought it out.
They sought it out. Yeah. It was they were reaching out to the Americans and said, "Please help us. If you do, we will help you." So there was a deal that was arranged, and when General Petraeus arrived in Iraq with his extra 30,000 troops, he found and helped create a 100,000-strong militia that joined up with him to fight against al-Qaeda in that case, because this militia felt it had no other choice, that it is better to sign up with the Americans than to lose the civil war in Iraq. It is not a comparable situation that you have in Afghanistan for a variety of reasons.
Well, there's no civil war.
There's no civil war. The Taliban generally don't bother and don't threaten the local population. So if you're put yourself in the position of a U.S. platoon leader on the ground. You go and knock on someone's house in southern Afghanistan or eastern Afghanistan, the most dangerous parts, and you say, "I'm here to protect you." And the Afghan might say, well, who are you protecting me from? "Well, I'm here to protect you from the Taliban." "But the Taliban aren't really bothering me." But they are trying to repress your people." "Well, yes, they are a little extreme, but they haven't really bothered me so much, and, you know, what's the difference? And you're a foreigner anyway, and I'd rather not have you protect me." "But we're here to help you establish a legitimate government, and we're here to defend the legitimate government." "But the government wasn't elected in a legitimate process because of the problems of the elections this last summer."
Right.
So if you're that company commander and you're knocking on somebody's door, you have a tough argument in Afghanistan. What do you tell that Afghan why you're there.
Yeah.
In Iraq, you knocked on someone's door, I'm here to protect you. Welcome, please come inside. You have a gun, because people felt they were about to die.
Yeah.
It's different in Afghanistan.
I want to play a clip from Tip of the Spear, because in addition to having spent time in Kabul and having dealt with some of these strategic issues and talked to the Afghan people, you've also been out on some of the Tip of the Spear, real forward operating base, those combat outposts. Tip of the Spear premieres Sunday night on MSNBC. It's Richard embedded alongside U.S. soldiers from the Army division known as Viper Company. We've got a quick clip here.
Isolated, dangerous, and at the tip of the spear in Afghanistan. Restrepo is attacked day and night. It's just after 8 p.m. when suddenly, incoming.
Boy! Get your sons up here! Boy!
But the soldiers can't tell where the Taliban are hiding.
Hey, who is that?
There's no high-tech way to find the militants. American military superiority doesn't mean much in these mountains. It's guns versus guns.
Fire!
So after the fight, the men from Restrepo set out into the darkness to find the Taliban. The terrain is especially difficult to navigate at night. The ground is loose shale that crumbles under their feet. And depth perception is difficult with their night vision monocles. But after hours hunting in the dark, the American troops don't find anything. This is often the mission here, hunting along trails until morning.
It's a clip from Tip of the Spear, your documentary premiering Sunday night. Richard, you have spent years covering the Iraq War. You've been in and out of Afghanistan a lot recently. Can you see, when you're out with these troops in these combat outposts, can you see what kind of effect the sheer length of these wars, these multiple deployments, is having on the military?
Yes, the machine is getting tired, and I think you can see that in the families. You can see that in the soldiers. I spent a lot of time with the troops, not just when they're in Afghanistan and Iraq, but over time they become your friends. And I get emails from soldiers all the time. They're going through divorces. They're having financial problems when they come home. They're coming back to credit card debt. How many deployments can a marriage last? And if you are going through this again and again, it puts an undue amount of strain. And generally just being away from your spouse is difficult. But then you're going into combat, and you're going into combat again and again, which has a psychological impact on you. Mm-hmm. So when you return from combat, already you're in a different place than your wife or husband, it might be. And then to try and put things back together is very difficult. So it's a strain on the military, on the equipment, of course, on the budget, but primarily on the families.
NBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel, thank you, as always, for your insight, for your reporting. The premiere of Tip of the Spear, Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern on MSNBC. Rachel Maddow Show viewers, it's mandatory. You actually have to watch it, and you'll be expected to report back on Monday.